Hi, everybody, and welcome to Nomadic Diaries. I'm just recording a short episode here for the Christmas holidays. And first of all, wherever you are on the globe, wherever you find yourself, I hope that you are enjoying a satisfying and delightful Christmas that provides you with a good time, wonderful friends and companionship, and the gifts of the season. So today I want to talk a little bit about those gifts of the season and the gifts of the expat experience. I'm just going to take 5 minutes. This will be a real short, what I would call a naked podcast. It's just going to roam around on the subject of, I think, habits and how to create a year-end review of your expatriation process or your expat experience. Now, I've recently been listening and rereading Atomic Habits by James Clear. And one of the things that he has always said in his book is, the most effective way to change our habits is to focus not on what we want to achieve, but on who we wish to become. And I think this is a very, very delightful way to talk about and to frame the expat experience because our expatriate experience, when we carry it with us, we bring all the invisible parts with us. We bring our financial selves, we bring our health and well-being, we bring our relationships and our communities. And it's a matter of how well do we pack and carry the old lives and then integrate them with our new lives overseas. So I just wanted today to do a little review of some of the subjects that we can look at, think about, examine, and perhaps coerce ourselves into better habits and a better situation as expatriates, no matter where you live. Now, I think that these will apply to most of the places that we choose to live in across the globe. But usually in December, I take this as a time to reflect and to start building my 13-month year. My 13-month year, every year I consider myself living 13 months because I count December as the first month of the following year in terms of preparing my mental and my physical and sort of my orientation goals. Where am I going to be? What is my purpose? Reviewing my purpose. So let's just look at some of the transition tactics that you can use to navigate your expat experience in 2025. First of all, let's pretend for a second you might be a corporate person. So as a corporate person, you can look at, what are the early warning signals? What's happening in the corporation? Are there restructuring? Is there restructuring going on now in the month of December? Um, how is your host country? What are the economic indicators? Is it doing well? Um, are there regulations or are there industry specific trends that are that are affecting the expat roles? Are you having to think about different changes in the visa regulations? And what is your employer communicating? Um, when we lived in Saudi Arabia, our employer did not communicate much around the Christmas season because for them, we were the last assignment I was on was in Saudi Arabia. And of course, that is an Islamic country, and we were really not supposed to be even celebrating Christmas, although the company basically acquiesced to that. When we first arrived there in the 90s, we could not bring in Christmas trees, although there were people who were actually selling Christmas trees out of their homes because they had been taken out of the expat shipments and then were being resold under the carpet, as it were, back to expats. So, towards the end of the year, you can see, depending on the calendar that you're operating on, you can watch for subtle communication shifts from your employer. Ours tended to be around Ramadan and Eid and those types of situations because they could send out a communication saying this is an update in status, this is a change in benefits, this is a corporate new policy that we're introducing or an old one that we're Xing. And then they could cloak that inside the framework of the vacation or the celebration that we were in the midst of. So I would just say if you're at all related to corporate, either digitally or in a fixed situation, this is a great time of year to review the signals and the strategies and what are the warning signs for 2025? What are the trends that are being predicted in your situation? Number two, I'd say the personal audit. Um, are you happy where you are? Are you in a professional, do you do a professional assessment every year? Have you done one recently? If you haven't, when will you do one? What's the situation? Are you feeling like you have good job security? When we were last overseas, we knew that we would be leaving in a certain year, but we were unclear as to the month. So our planning started in December the year before as to how we would stage, organize, and ship out back home again. And so a professional assessment went along with that was, what was my husband going to be doing? What was I going to be doing in the future? How did we see our repatriation back home at that time? And what was the job possibilities? What were the consulting possibilities? So that involved, sort of looking at a market of our skills. What skills did we have? Had we learned new skills while we were there? Also, in December, it's a great time for networking because, the old-fashioned networking, of course, was Christmas cards. You put them up on the mantelpiece. We don't do that anymore, but it's a great time to connect professionally with people via LinkedIn or via the groups that you belong to. So this is a super time of year to be networking. Also, a good thing to look at is what new skills or certifications have you collected along the year? Um, I've been working on Spanish here in Mexico, and while I haven't collected any certifications or any professional pieces of paper, um, I do get to have a year-end review of where I was and how I could communicate Spanish at the beginning of the year and now at the end of the year. Sadly, I'm not where I'd like to be. However, this is a great time for me to evaluate how much time, energy, and patience, and what is my schedule going to be like for the next year, and where will I squeeze in my Spanish learning? What are my priorities? And priorities are a huge part of the personal audit. Number three, if you have a family, a lot of expat overseas life can be driven by schooling and by the health and the well-being of our families. And the health and the well-being of our families includes mental health, physical health, children's education, spousal career, spousal opportunities. If you're an accompanying spouse, what is your purpose for the next year? Have you found that? Do you have it written down? And just having that all sort of reviewed and taken down in pieces of paper or formulated on a Google Doc. I don't care how you do it, but we just find that so helpful. What are your extended family considerations? Um, do you have elderly parents? How often do you need to see them? How far do you need to travel? How will you coordinate a visit with them and other either company business or personal business? How is the mental health of the mental well-being of yourself and or your spouse and or your family? Um, are you prepared and ready for any adaptations that you need to make, either physically, emotionally, spiritually, professionally, or geographically? So I think it's really important and it's a wonderful gift to have this expat life because it almost takes us out of the year to year to year to year sameness that we can live in if we're in the same location. But when we change the geography, it's a wonderful way to reframe everything. And I've always thought that that was one of the greatest gifts of Christmas as an expat. Then next to your company or your professional situation and your personal audit, including your family readiness, your children's education, spouse's career, then I think it's really good to have a practical sort of a timeline. I love to start mine on the 1st of December, and obviously it's too late to do that now. However, I have been working on it. I've been spending time every week in reflecting on what would I love? What would we love? And we've actually made some travel commitments for next year already. One based on a family priority, and another one based on my husband's desire to travel to a location I hadn't been particularly excited about. So I got myself on the computer and did some research and became more excited about it. And then we made a commitment to traveling to that destination. So that's some of the things that we've been doing in December, setting ourselves up for success in 2025. I think that it's good to do the planning, the chatting, the scenario mapping, what's possible, what would we love in December, and then actually taking January to start to develop the systems. Like today, I did my new Calendly calendar of when I will be recording these podcasts, and that Calendly link goes out to every single person who would love to be interviewed. And that was a concrete decision making. Okay, I'm going to interview on this day, and this day at these times. And I'm building it around some of my priorities, which are Spanish learning, pickleball playing, other health and well-being situations that I include in my lifestyle. So next, and including this situation, is the financial preparation checklist. How are you doing as an expat with your emergency fund? Do you have an emergency fund? Do you want one? And when will you start building it? This is where James Clear's comment comes in about we don't build the habits to create a result. We build the habits to become the person we want to be. So are you the person that wants to have an emergency fund? What are the tax implications of your situation? Our tax situation in Saudi was extremely complicated and complex because they had us pretend that we were paying taxes in the US the whole time when we were and we weren't. And so we had the benefit of professional tax preparers. Do you need that? Is that something you want to take on board for next year? Is that something you'd love to have? What are the international banking considerations? Is your bank moving, changing? What new trends are you seeing in the banking situation that you're involved in? And what do you need to adjust for? These are all things that we get to play with, right? Also, healthcare and insurance transitions. Um, because I am in my now my 70s, low 70s, I might add, we have different healthcare strategies that we need to consider. And every year in October, because we are harnessed to the US situation, we have to update and make sure that we get new cards and that we're prepared for all the healthcare and insurance transitions that we need to manage. One of the transitions that we've needed to manage and living as an expat in Mexico is that we have purchased an emergency system, an emergency flight system, which will fly us back to a hospital of our choice in the US in the case of emergencies. Now, wherever you are in life, you might not need that right now, but you may be approaching considering it. So these are just strategies and subjects that I'm throwing out. Give yourself the gift of considering it. What about our emotional and psychological preparations? Do we have good communication strategies in place with yourself, your community, your spouse, if you have one, or your partner, or your families? And how are you dealing with managing any uncertainty? Do you know if you're leaving your location next year? Do you know where you're going if you leave? Um, if you're in the Middle East, is there some uncertainty over where you're living? Are you prepped and prepared with a go bag if you need to leave? Even in 2024, I have been in touch with and known many people who have had to relocate quickly and effectively. And it's, I think, always important just to be aware and to have some emotional and psychological prep done so that you are ready if you need to make a change. And hopefully, you will have time to process that change. What about your children? If you have children, do they have emotional support? How are their friendships going? Do they have friends who are going to be leaving this year? Our daughter, in from the second to the fourth grade when we were in Saudi, was a very traumatic time. And we had many, many close family friends who had children of our daughter's age in school. And we found ourselves constantly saying goodbye to people and hello to new people. And so there was quite an emotional lesson for us there, and there was a price to pay. We had to actually expend more emotional energy in um, saying goodbye and processing all of these transitions that other people were going through. How are your support networks doing? Are you juggling all the balls, or have you not been in touch with someone over the last year? I've been getting messages from people this month who we will be reconnecting with in January, because they're people who are our snowbird friends. And as snowbird friends, we spend time with them for maybe 3 or 4 months a year, and then they're gone again. And we don't usually see them in the summer, but sometimes we see them in the fall. Others we only see in like January, February, March, or April. And so maintaining those networks and reconnecting is a wonderful gift around the Christmas season. They're contacting us now and saying, "Are you there? Shall we play? Let's go out to dinner. Yeah, let's celebrate this, that, or the other." And all of these practices, I think, build some sort of a psychological resilience. Having had the benefit of seeing these patterns over the years happening consistently, I just decided to call them a gift. And they are a present, a gift from the expat lifestyle. Another part of this could be, do you have a transition toolkit? Do you have your documentation organized, your shipping, or any relocation considerations? Are you thinking of moving? Are you thinking of staying in your current location but moving home? We know people here who have just done this, and they thought they were selling their house or moving house and leaving Mexico, but it turns out they're just moving to a different house in Mexico, in the same city. And so what is your housing situation? And what are your school and educational transitions? Are your children going to be going to university, or are they going to high school, or are they going to boarding school, or are they moving up a grade where they need to physically go to another school? And do you have that all organized? Wonderful gifts to think about, thinking ahead and taking away all these takeaways. So just to end this, a little bit of a rambly Christmas letter, I'd just like to say that give yourself the gift of checklists. Give yourself the gift of some resources, some support for your expat transitions. Give yourself the gift of reconnecting with your community, reconnecting with your family, and give yourself the gift of perhaps an updating of your legal and financial consultation. All of these lend themselves to be a gift, and they should be pragmatic and practical. They should feel supportive and nurturing, but most of all, they should be action oriented. And so I leave you with another quote from James Clear, where he says, James Clear says, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. So I think what he means here that, we can make little changes, even if you just revisit your goals and your purposes, your dreams, your visions, that he also says we should be far more concerned with our trajectory than with our current results. And so I think that as expats or digital nomads or global nomads, whatever title you give yourself, you have the benefit of living overseas. You have the benefit of a lifestyle which is sort of piggybacking on your old lifestyle and gives you the benefit of new perceptions, new memories, new intelligence, and new imaginations of where you could possibly go. So I just wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year when that comes. Bye-bye, ma salama, sayonara, and hasta luego.